Welcome back to Local 4 Plus Live, friends. As promised, we have an interview with 826 Michigan, which is an organization that helps children write their own stories and turns them into books. So let's get our guests in. We have Megan Shuchman, Executive Director, and Denise Ervin, Program Director. Good morning, and thank you guys so much for being with us.
Good
Thank
morning.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So, Kari and I are very passionate about children, passionate about education. So, tell us more about 826 Michigan and its mission.
Well, maybe I can start and just thank you so much for having us. I'm so glad we get to talk to you a little bit about our work. We are a youth writing organization. We're part of a network of the largest youth writing organization in the country. And our work and mission is really simple. We want young people to be able to tell their story and stand confidently in doing so. So we really believe in the power of story, and we work with students across Detroit and Southeast Michigan to help them get better at writing and teach them writing skills that will help them do just that, tell their own story.
So, what age groups do you guys work with?
Well, we work with students in our programs K through 12, so school age students. But what we really love is that older students, college age, and students basically in their young 20s can come and work with us as volunteers. We have a fabulous partnership with Wayne State University, for example, and those students are often working as mentors for our younger students in our programs. So we really serve many ages.
Okay, so Denise, why do you think it's so important for children to learn the skill and the art of writing?
It's such a fabulous skill set to have. I will say that I grew up to be a writer, essentially, right? But if someone had told me when I was 5 years old, 6 year old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, that that was a viable career option, that it wasn't just about being able to write a story or being able to express myself, but this was actually a thing that I could do for a living. Imagine what I would be today beyond what I am actually doing in this space. We're not only teaching these students about careers, but we're giving them confidence. We're giving them a skill set to be able to express themselves in writing, in job interviews, in communicating with family members and friends. It's just such a skill set that allows them to move throughout the world and to find their place in the world that I couldn't imagine having a life that you didn't have writing as a part of.
I mean, it's interesting because you're teaching them how to write, you're teaching them storytelling within that process. Isn't everything part of storytelling, even as an adult? Like when I have to write and pitch something, I have to paint the picture for you. If you're in business, I have to be able, you can have the best business idea in the world, but if I can't pitch it correctly or if I can't tell the story of that product or that service the right way, I'm not going to generate the kind of business that I could. So that just is, my own personal expression of how writing continues well into adulthood and why it could be so important for children. So as you guys were talking, I was connecting with that in a big way. But what emotions have you witnessed when you see these kids' stories come to life?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm not gonna cry this morning. I promise I'm not. But it is the most amazing experience ever to watch these students go through this process. When we walk in and they are kind of hesitant in a lot of instances, they don't know necessarily who we are or what we're going to do, or they're used to experiencing writing or communication in a particular way in the classroom, the way that language arts is taught. And I always say that we're the fun parent, right? We get to show up and do this creative writing. So if you want to write a story about a unicorn that lives on a marshmallow cloud and eats potato chips, that's what we're going to write a story about today. And we're going to make it the most fun thing ever. And when the students realize, number one, that they get to write about what they want to write about, what they're interested in, and then number two, that they already possess so much of what they need in order to tell that story, we're just there to turn that dial up to 10 for them. The looks on their faces are absolutely phenomenal. I remember a specific moment when we were working on our current project when we had started doing a writing exercise, just like a warm up to talk about what your story might be about. By the time we got to the end of it, I was checking in with the students and making sure everybody was on the same page and okay. And I had one student, I walked up to him and I said, "You think you're ready to write?" And he looked up at me and very confidently said, "Definitely." And I'm like, that is the energy that I was looking for this morning. Let's go.
No, that's exciting. I worked with kids in the past, and I just love to see their faces brighten up when they feel like something is achievable, like this is attainable, and you guys are really giving them that gift. Megan, do you have a story that you'd like to share with us about a student who maybe blossomed from being maybe introverted, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Denise just said because I think as important as the writing that we're doing is exactly what you're talking about, which is the confidence to know that you can accomplish something and be really successful at it. We have students all the time who come back to us later, maybe they're early in their career now, and they say, you know, I got to write with 826, and more than that, you published me in a book. So you can actually see over Denise's shoulder is one of the student publications we recently published called Atomic. It's stories from Detroit fifth graders. And we have a young man who's working with us now in a couple capacities, and he was published as a fifth grader, so the same age as the students that Denise published that book with. And now he just finished his master's in education and business at Stanford, and he credits working with us in Michigan, getting published. He actually was in a book. It was Letters to Obama, that he was young people's voices that they wanted the then president to know their thoughts and feelings. And he said when he opened that book and saw his name there listed as one of the writers, he said he kind of looked around and was like, is this real? Do I actually get to keep this? And is this something other people are going to see? And the answer is yes. We publish our books and then we distribute thousands of them across Detroit to libraries, to schools. We sell our books in partnership with local bookstores. So, yeah, our students' words are getting out there. And as Denise said so beautifully, whatever that story they want to tell, we honor it. And then we say, you are worthy of publication because you are worthy of other people hearing and getting to experience your words. You're important and you matter.
Yeah, I feel like there's the part of your story being validated right through this process, and at the gaining incredible skills that I'm sure helped him get into Stanford, and then at the
Yeah,
same
we think
time,
so.
I think so too. And then at the same time, your resume reads, "Hey, published a book in the fifth grade. That's not bad," or a published author, right? By the time I was
Yeah.
in the fifth grade, which is amazing. Now, you guys also have a number of volunteers to help the kids. How do they feel when they see the kids' stories turned into books?
Oh my
Denise, do you want
goodness.
to take this one?
Yes. So volunteers is one of the backbones of our program. And that is students that come from maybe academic service learning partnerships at Wayne State University, for example, or even just community volunteers that are interested in writing or interested in kids and want to find a way to give back. And so we have volunteers that come to us, and sometimes they're like, I don't really have a writing background or I don't have a teaching background. I haven't worked in education. But the interesting part is that you don't need any of those things. I really just need you to be committed to helping kids. And what we generally find is that these are people who say things like, I used to write stories when I was in school, or, I maybe haven't done that in a long time, or I always used to like poetry too. So maybe, and then they show up and they get the energy, this infectious energy from these students and the stories that they are interested in. And the ability to be able to nurture that confidence and that energy and to absorb it and take some of it into your own life, we actually encourage our volunteers to write along with the students when we're in programs as well. So when we are working in small groups and the students are writing to a particular prompt or maybe free writing, we encourage the volunteers to write alongside them, not just to set an example as a mentorship to show the students what to do, but to actually engage with your own writing process as well. Because we create a synergy inside of the room where we might be working with 20 students and 5 volunteers, but the 25 of us have the power of 100. Because when we're working together and we're creating together, we are creating so much more than just what those 25 people are capable of.
Absolutely. And as someone who has volunteered with kids, I'm sure that they walk away with having received just as much as from the children as they were able to give the children. It is truly a life changing opportunity to be a part of something like this. But now, how much does it cost for a child to be in one of the writing programs with your organization?
Well, our programs have been around for almost 20 years, and the cost has remained the same, which is free. So all of our programs are free. We never charge. We want every student who needs or wants to be a part of this program to be able to do so. So we're a nonprofit and we're funded by generous supporters who help make our work possible, but we never charge. We always say our programs have always been free and they always will be.
That is amazing. Now, what is going on at the Detroit Historical Society this weekend that you're a part of?
We are so excited about this. You might see a little bit of giddiness because it's really, we're on the eve of this happening. But I want Denise to tell about it. This is her dream that is being brought to life. I couldn't be prouder.
So a year ago, I had this amazing idea of a project that we wanted to do, and we were currently working with the University Prep School District, and we had the fifth graders at Mark Murray engaged in this project, and it is an oral project, right? So we traditionally publish books, as you see over my shoulder. This instance, I wanted us to do an audio book, right? I wanted to tap into the oral tradition that is so important, that we don't tap into enough, in my opinion. And so we worked with these fifth grade students, all of the fifth grade students, over the course of about 11 or 12 weeks to craft these stories. And so there are a variety of things. There are stories that tell the migration of people and their families making their way to Detroit. There are stories that tell about particular moments in time that are important in these students' lives. There are stories that tell individual things that matter to their lives as young people growing up in the city of Detroit. And so we have crafted 53 stories in total, that are going to be on display, officially opening to the public this weekend. Today, our students will get a chance to see it for the very first time. So they will see not only their photographs and their story names and the illustrations that we have had professionally designed by Daisy Rizzo, who is an alum of University Prep and a native Detroiter. They will see all of this colorful wonderfulness, inside of the Detroit Historical Society, next to the Hustle exhibit, along with being able to hear the actual voice recordings of their stories. So each student was recorded reading their own individual story. It's been edited and professionally put together so that it forms an entire audiobook of all 53 stories related to three specific themes.
Which is incredibly cool to have this experience as a young person. What was their reaction to this? And hearing themselves, on a recording in something so formal, right? Like kids, everyone has access to a phone and they can record something now, but this is different. How did they react to it?
Initially, we had a lot of nerves. We had a lot of students that were, I don't know, I don't like what my voice sounds like. I don't know if I can do this. And we calmed them down very largely by explaining this wasn't a performance. I'm not asking you to memorize it. I don't need you to stand on stage in front of people and actually emote. That they were allowed to read it, right? So we put them in a room with our audio engineer and maybe one other person, and they were able to read it as many times as they needed to read it through with the emotion and the ideas that, expressing the ideas that they felt they wanted to in that moment. And so seeing their faces at the beginning when they all look nervous and scared, at the end versus when we tell them how fabulous it was, that they've done a good job, they actually haven't had a chance to really hear it before today. So I'm looking forward to seeing their faces when they hear the full audio recordings, the edited recordings, today when they show up at the Detroit Historical Society.
Yeah, this is going to be incredibly exciting. I'm giddy too, and I'm just learning about this because I know how the kids are going to react. But let's talk about your online robot store. What is that all about?
Yeah, so our robot store, which can be found at onwardrobots.com, is a retail store that we have. And we do have a physical storefront as well over in Ann Arbor, but you can purchase all of our goods and books at Onward Robots. And what's really important to say about this is there's two pieces. One, why do we have a store? And two, why is it robot themed? So all of the proceeds of the store go to helping keep our programs free, as we talked about a little earlier. programs always have been free, always will be free, so that every participant can join us and write with us and tell their story. But the reason we are robot themed is because along about over 20 years ago, when the 826 Writing Network was formed, the two brilliant co-founders, Dave Eggers and Nineveh Caligari, really wanted to make sure that students who were showing up at that time, not only for writing programs, but also for tutoring programs and academic support in San Francisco, where the program started, wouldn't feel stigmatized. They were going to be showing up to a building and people might know that they needed a little bit of extra support or help. And so they wanted to make it really fun. So they had this idea, what if we themed the storefront of where students were headed? In the case of San Francisco, it's pirate themed. And so every chapter that came afterward, of which Michigan is proudly one, has a special theme, and ours is robots. So we always talk to our students about robot themed things to kind of keep it light and fun. And also, we talk to them about the fact that robots can do a lot of things. And even with AI, yes, robots can write, but robots still can never write your story or do it as well as you. So we're having a lot of fun, you can imagine, in recent months playing with our theme in new ways. But that's why robots, and we're the robot shop.
I love it. Raise money and even use that as a learning tool going forward. So, why is this work so important to each of you as individuals? Denise, I'll start with you.
Okay. This work is so important to me because I'm a lifelong Detroiter, right? Born and raised here, educated here, from elementary school all the way up through college, and it is important to me that people who look like me, who come from where I come from, who have experiences similar to what I have, learn and gather the skill set in order to be able to communicate with this world. It is so vital that you know how to express yourself. It is so vital that you know how to define yourself. There's a very famous quote, I believe it's an Audre Lorde quote, that says, if you don't define yourself for yourself, you will be crushed into other people's fantasies of you and eaten alive. And so for me, this work is about teaching young people to define themselves for themselves and to control the narrative that the world sees about who you are. Giving them that confidence, giving them that ability is all I've ever wanted for my life. And so I now have the dream job.
That spoke to me. I might have to tweet that later because that was excellent. Because that's something that you're still working on as an adult. So Megan, how about you?
Well, one, I get to work with brilliant students and brilliant people like Denise. So I'm echoing what Denise said. I couldn't have a better job. But one thing I love for our young people is that we often have young people join our after school clubs. So we do work inside of schools, like the project we spoke about with our wonderful partners at University Prep, but also we do work outside of school time. So we host programs that we call after school writing labs. They're basically clubs for kids who want to come and write in a community of peers. And I know for me, I was the arts kid who didn't realize she was an arts kid until high school. So I really felt like I didn't find my people until I was in high school. And it was actually a theater teacher who kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, I know you're doing all these other things, sports, etc., but maybe you also want to try this thing called the drama club and give it a try. And I think it's so important, whatever young people do, whatever their extracurricular can be, we call it that third space, that out of school time space, they need to find young people who are like them and who have similar interests and who can be supported by caring adults. We know that that can help define a young person's success for the rest of their lives. So that's something that I know was true for me. And I want all of our young people to be able to find their people like I did. And we know that our clubs help provide that.
Absolutely. Now, if someone wants to support 826 Michigan, how can they go about that?
Well, thank you for asking that. We would welcome supporters in two ways. One, we are always looking for new volunteers, as Denise mentioned. So do check us out. If you're somebody with some time on your hands, we would love to get you trained and get you out in our classrooms and after school programs. And also, we are always looking for new supporters. So donations of any kind help keep our work going and thriving. Right now, in the post pandemic world, we know that our students are struggling academically. Particularly, one of the main grade bands that we work with is third grade. Third through fifth is a huge time for students in terms of literacy and writing. We don't want them to fall off in that kind of really essential third grade period of their academic learning, because it's really hard to get back on track after that. That's been proven in many studies nationwide. So here we are post pandemic. We need a lot of support, and programs like ours can support our schools in giving some of our students who need just a little extra support in the areas of writing and reading that extra help to keep them working at grade level, and hopefully beyond. So please do visit 826michigan.org. Pledge your support. Any gift size is helpful, and we're really grateful to all our many generous supporters.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing the incredible work that your organization is doing with us. Good luck with your event at the Historical Society. And thank you so much for joining us for Local 4 Plus Live. We really appreciate both of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you. Keep us up to date in everything you're working on, because we want to know. We want to know.
Wonderful.
Yes.
That was incredible.
They're outstanding. Like, are you kidding
Feel
me?
their passion for what they do. Was that not amazing?
And just I want it on record. Denise, greatest glasses of all
Of all time.
Like
Indeed.
they're bangers. You
Facts,
won.
as the kids say.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a real quick break, and we will be right back with more Local 4 Plus Live.